In today's video, we'll be talking about Sarkis Soghanalian, the Merchant of Death, an infamous international private arms dealer from Armenia, one of the most powerful people of the 20th century, surrounded by a great deal of intrigue and mystery. How it all began. Sarkis Soghanalian was born on February 6, 1929, to an Armenian family in Iskenderun, which was then part of Syria and now belongs to Turkey. His family was living in very poor conditions, so they decided to move to Lebanon. In the aftermath of the Great War, that area was under a French mandate, so Sarkis made a decision to leave high school and join the French army in order to help his family financially. He served his time in the tank division, and it's there that he was introduced to the massive world of weaponry and war. And where most people saw death and decay, he saw money and opportunity. After serving in the French army, he began his short stint as a ski instructor. That job helped him land his future wife from America. The merchant origins. He wasn't young when he entered the world of arms dealing. He began that life in his 40s during the 1970s. His first jobs were to sell American weapons to whom he can, since the Lebanese army was mainly funded by the USA. But, as luck would have it, Sarkis found a connection in Eastern Europe to expand his business, so he began funneling weapons from Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, and many other countries. One connection was first with the Soviet Union, but because they didn't want to get caught with their hands in the cookie jar, they found Sarkis a Bulgarian connection. Soghanalian eventually became the biggest arms dealer during the Cold War, with connections on both sides, and nobody was actually bothered by him. When the Cold War officially ended, he found a way to supply the Christian political party in Lebanon, private militias in Ecuador, Mauritania, Nicaragua, Zaire, and similar countries torn by war and poverty. He even supplied Muammar al-Gaddafi himself, and even the Argentinian military during the Falklands War. But he really became a shark when in business with Saddam Hussein. He was earning roughly $12 million per year at this time, which would be around $60 million today, adjusting for inflation. Iraqi Business. Soghanalian became the biggest weapons dealer in his era because the United States declined Iraq when they wanted to acquire 175mm artillery pieces from them. The American officials steered Iraq towards finding a private dealer. So Saddam contacted Sarkis in 1981. He was already in the US at that time, happily married and living in Miami. Sarkis found a way to move the weapons through France, since Iraq had French hostages, and with the help of the US, the Vulcan sale passed. Since the sales were official, Soghanalian was confronted about them in 1999. He claimed that he made sure Iraq got the weapons so they could help fight against the common enemy, which was Iran at the time. After the successful operation, Iraq contacted him once again, but this time he only needed to find a way to move weapons from South Africa to Iraq. He managed to find a loophole in the United Nations Acts and moved the weapons through a middleman in Austria, and soon after sold Iraq military uniforms from Romania worth around $280 million. These transactions officially netted him the nickname Merchant of Death. It's important to note that he always kept a close connection with his customers. He once even flew a doctor from the US to check Saddam Hussein's back problems. The deal with the United States. But how did Sarkis manage to do everything under and above the radar at the same time? How was he with and at the same time against the US? Well, he wasn't with or against anyone. He was only hunting for a payday in any way possible. The United States knew everything about him, his whereabouts, and his transactions during his stint in Iraq. US officials even helped him find French connections during a $1.4 billion transaction for artillery. His connection with the States began in 1958 when they landed in Lebanon, where he was serving in the French army. He was very helpful and cooperative and knew the language, so he was a perfect middleman for gray area operations. Sarkis managed to climb so far up the ladder that even top officials in the US knew about him. His deals were so big they needed the green light from Richard Nixon himself and Colonel Jack Brennan, who was Nixon's chief of staff. Sarkis versus America. When Soghanalian went public about his connection with the US officials in an interview on CBS, you could say that the top dogs weren't very happy. The administration of George Bush Sr. launched an extensive investigation to find out more about him, and surely there were some shady deals under the table. In 1991, he was charged with 6 counts of weapons possession and intent to sell to Iraq. The charges included over 100 Hughes military helicopters and several grenade launchers. Sarkis had an undisclosed ace up his sleeve, and his $20,000 fine and 6 years behind bars were lowered to 2. Allegedly, he'd given US intel information about a $100 billion counterfeit chain based in Lebanon. I mean, even with the information he gave them, the fine was laughable. A multi-billion-dollar arms dealer who helped the Soviet Union, serving only 2 years? Nevertheless, he was released in 1995, and he immediately moved to France, where he started his new operations. Deal gone south. During his time in France, he managed to restore his old European connections and make new friends too. He somehow managed to get his hands on 10,000 AK-47 rifles. The Kalashnikovs were a surplus supply that East Germany had previously sent to Jordan. He only paid $75 per rifle, as they were clearly from the government and not black market goods. $55 was for the rifle. Packing and handling were another $10 plus $10 for transportation. But the deal went bad fast as the shipment somehow came into the hands of the Colombian guerrilla organization FARC. They were supposed to be backed by the US, who also approved the deal, but something was rotten in the chain of command. Sarkis didn't want to get caught up in the deal any more than he already was, so he moved on since AK-47s were the least profitable weapon to sell anyway. But America got in touch with him again while he was visiting his family for Christmas. This time they wanted to charge him with a $3 million wire fraud, and they listed some bogus excuses, but it was obvious they were really focused on the Peruvian job. The charge was dropped once again because Sarkis revealed that the CIA supported the Peruvian intelligence chief Vladimiro Montesinos in the plot to move the rifles to the hands of the Colombian terrorists. Notwithstanding the fact that he had a lot of dirty laundry, the US needed his help. Maybe they even made up the charge just to make him help them. The US government often relied on Soghanalian's knowledge and his connections to source information without sending spies or getting their own hands dirty and compromised. Retirement and death. If some information about Sarkis mentioned here seems familiar, you might have seen the 2005 movie Lord of War starring Nicolas Cage, where Sir Ian Holm plays Simeon Weiss, a character massively based on Sarkis Soghanalian. After the deal with Peru fell through, the merchant decided it was time to retire. He moved back to Florida, where he lived a peaceful life and died on October 5, 2011. The account book. But the drama didn't stop with his death. In 2015, compromising documents were brought to light. Not compromising to Sarkis because he was already dead, but to the US government. Over 2,500 pages were disclosed by the FBI following the work of persistent archivists. The first document was from 1962, even before Sarkis began to work as an arms dealer. This was an investigation of his illegal imports of German cars to the US. But the concerning ones don't start until the 1980s, showing the FBI knew about countless allegedly unapproved weapons deals worth billions of dollars. There was a shady handwritten document showing that Sarkis received over $1 billion from Mauritania and didn't deliver anything. He later had to pay some fines and was on probation for 5 years. But this document proves that not only the US knew about the deal beforehand, but they were involved too. The most interesting information from the giant reveal is that Saddam Hussein owed Soghanalian $95 million. This might be the explanation for his sudden retirement. Maybe he was allowed to cash the money he was owed before the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Well, that would be it for today's video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, ring that bell so you don't miss any of our future uploads. Until the next time.